Well, in this part, I will talk on some certain trends in the world economy. I have four graphs. Um, this is the first one, which shows them in the United States. This is the United States, not the world. It shows, but you can look to different parts of the world, and in rising parts of it, this trend is, well, you can see that in China, for example, also. Um, well, especially after up to point 2010s, basically. In 2010s, maybe something has started to change. That itself could be a discussion, but I'm leaving it for discourse. Are we entering the new era? Maybe. If people are willing to discuss, we can discuss it. But at least that era's trademarks are not exactly there. I mean, some maybes are there. So, one thing you can see here is, from the 1910s to the 1960s, actually 1940s is the benchmark period. You see a very steep decline in the top 1% and top 0.1% share from the income. Still, it's large. I mean, note that this 10% of income is shared by only 1%. And this almost 5%, I mean 32% income is shared by 1/1000 of the population. But the income has actually, the income shared by this group is actually almost, actually not almost doubled, actually, from 1970s, mid-1970s, 1980s, all the way up to the 2010s. So you see this increase in the inequality. And then you have this decrease in world poverty. Of course, this type of poverty is measured by the poverty is measured by the absolute income, of course, real income still, but the $1.9 per day, the number of people who are earning less than that. And in the world, that number has decreased from 1982 to 2017 from 1.8 billion to, around 0.8 billion or 800 million. We might be excited, we have right to be excited, but that decrease is mostly created by China. I mean, 800 million people in China are now out of poverty when we take $1.9 per day approach. $1.9 is today around 20 Turkish lira per day, actually less than that. I mean, world excluding China is here. The decrease is from 1.8 billion to maybe 8 billion, 800 million basically, a more modest decrease. And in Africa, there is no decrease at all. You have even an increase in Africa. So you have a whole continent which did not make any progress in this era. This is one part of the story, and then you have the other part of the story. I mean, interestingly, people in the United States are in general more depressed. I mean, this, for example, they express this is the first generation for the generation that was born after 2000 in the United States. That will be better than their parents. I mean, actually, if you look to the absolute income, probably they are better than the parents. But in many ways, they fall. They feel this poverty. Well, some of them become homeless. Some of them are on the verge, live on the verge of being homelessness. Some of them cannot afford college costs, or they need to pay for their whole life. The college costs are being worried. I mean, they might not be able to pay for it. Healthcare costs can be very high. In the meantime, they are able to use the wonders of the information technologies, iPhones and computers and internet, which was not available. But basic, when we are talking about basic life needs, in some ways they might be considered to be at least more worried than the previous generation. And here we have an interesting aspect of the poverty. Well, when we have a society, poverty in some cases might felt in ways in developed societies that are not felt in developing countries. For example, let me give you an example. In Utah, when I was a student, I was amazed to see a big sign at the highway: donate your car for a family who needs it. But how would you donate a car? A car is a luxury. I mean, in 2000s, it was to some extent it's still so in Turkey. I mean, it is now used by more and more people, but still, I mean, to donate a car, well, that's not a basic need while people are hungry or while people are not able to have a home. I mean, why would you call people to donate their car to the people in need? Well, because in the United States it is a need. When public transportation is not developed enough, in order to go to school, in order to go to your job, in many cases, even for unskilled workers, you only can rely on a car. I mean, for certain living spaces, without a car, your ability to go your job is very limited. So, without a sufficiently developed public transportation, well, a car becomes a need. Without it, you might be poor. You might be cut from many social relations, so the abilities which could be accessible without a car in developing countries. I could not see Utah, for example, in many places of Utah, because without a car you don't have access to them. There is no public transportation to go to many of the historical famous landmarks people are coming to Utah to see without a car. Same thing for the cell phone. Without a cell phone, you might not be able to find a job. So basically, certain things have become now necessary to maintain certain aspects of the living standards that exist in 1960s even. I mean, without a cell phone, without a car, you might not be able to maintain the life standard a middle class person has in 1960s and 1950s. So those are interesting aspects of the poverty. So in many ways, poverty shows itself in different forms in today's society, because certain things you had access to without certain technologically advanced stuff might not be available without those stuff anymore. Anyway, let's continue. So that is another interesting aspect. I mean, when you see the government debt, this is the United States. From 1945 all the way to the 1970s, even in the 1970s when you had this stagflation crisis, the government debt of the United States with respect to the GDP of the United States, the production level, has continuously fallen down. Well, who was the guy who had changed this trend? Well, Reagan was the guy. Reagan has cut the taxes, but he has also increased the spending on the police force and on the Defense Department. So he has increased government spending in a sense. And as a result, the debt in government era has risen up. Reagan was created an enormous economic boost, but that economic boost in many ways also created by this increased government spending, which was done by borrowing money from financial markets and from the rest of the world. Who has actually temporarily reversed the trend? It was the Bill Clinton, relatively left-leaned, relatively left-leaned, let me say. In many ways, he has accepted the tenets of the Reagan's economic views. Relatively left-leaned president, basically, who famously said, I mean, it's economy stupid, economy should be managed better. And for him, a proper management of that economy means also balancing the budget. Also, I mean, that was an excuse that was a reason to cut taxes cut government spending for him. But also, he has also created. He was also not the guy who says, okay, cut spending, but also cut taxes, and so that, I mean, those things will rule themselves out. And also, he was also not a guy who at least escalate the who maintained the defense spending, and also increased the spending on police force. But at least he has done this in balance. He did not this in an excessive way, so that the government debt of the United States would increase. The second Bush era is a vast increase in the government spending. Obama years were also a vast increase in government spending, understandably, because there was an economic crisis, and Obama was pretty much in the view that it was necessary to increase government spending to get out of the crisis. In that way, he kind of has returned to the Keynesian viewpoints. And this is the world. After 1990s, as you see, in many countries, you have government spending increasing. I mean, although in some of them in moderate levels, in many countries you see government spending increasing. Of course, Greece is 180%, but Italy and Portugal, Ireland were basically in 2014 well above the 100% of GDP level. I mean, the government debt was above 100% of the GDP level. So they need to, even if they give everything they produce to pay the debt, they won't be able to cover their whole debt. And these are the other countries. Even Germany is around 80%, basically. And inflation. Well, you can see that up to 1960s, you have cases where you have inflation, high inflation even, but you had also cases where you had deflation. After 1960s, as you have seen, you had always inflation. You have periods with high inflation, but even at the modern times, you had inflation. What does it mean? What is the consequence of an economy with consistent inflation? Well, one thing is the system itself continuously works to decrease the share of the, in general sense, the debt holders. If I have signed contract with someone and he will pay me a certain amount of money monthly, inflation means every month, basically, the buying power of that money will fall down, because the inflation means the overall buying power of money is continuously decreasing. Well, that basically helps the producers, because producers get debt from the financial system. Also, they usually sign contracts, yearly contracts for their workers, which means, I mean, the money they will pay for their workers is fixed for at least a year, in some cases, in many years. And in many cases, of course, when there's inflation and buying power of the money falls down, well, those contracts should be renegotiated. If there's no renegotiation, then basically the company is effectively paying less to the workers. So even they don't need negotiation to, well, without negotiation, basically, the money they pay for their workers progressively goes down. So basically, this is a picture, or this is a structural characteristic which is helping the producers. And producers usually don't like the case when you have the reverse, you have deflation, as we have talked on the US deflation case in 19th century. Anyway, next time we will start talking on the East Asian development model.